welcome to the deep dive. So if you're a risk manager in financial services, have you ever really stopped to think just how much of your institution's core digital operations actually happen outside your direct control?
It's a huge point. We're talking about this really complex web, right? External tech, third-party providers.
Yeah.
They're everywhere now.
Exactly. It fuels incredible innovation, yeah.
Yeah.
But it also brings these massive systemic risks, concentration risks too, often hidden. So how well do you really know the vulnerabilities in your third-party ICT landscape?
And that's precisely where the Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA, comes in. It's a pretty groundbreaking piece of legislation. It sets up this comprehensive oversight framework specifically targeting those critical third-party service providers, the CTPPs. They're like the unseen digital plumbing of the financial sector.
Right, the plumbing.
I like that.
And for this deep dive, we really want to be your guide through the official DORA Oversight guide. We're going to pull out the key stuff. Like, what are DORA's objectives here? Who are the key players running the show? How do they even figure out who is critical?
And the tools they use, right? The European supervisory authorities, ESAs, have a whole toolkit for this oversight.
Yes. And what does all this mean for your compliance, your risk management, day to day, in banking, insurance, wherever you are in finance?
Because look, understanding DORA isn't just, well, it's not just ticking a box for compliance. It's more fundamental.
How so?
It's really about safeguarding the stability of the whole financial system. It gives you, the risk manager, a proactive way to manage your entity's ICT risks. And frankly, it's about competitive edge, knowing who handles your critical stuff.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with the basics, the why behind DORA. I mean, we all see it. Technology isn't just support anymore, is it? It's core.
Absolutely core. It's vital for competitiveness, even viability, but this deep reliance, especially on external ICT services, well, that's created these really significant systemic and concentration risks.
You give an example.
Sure. Imagine just a handful of, say, cloud providers or payment processors that tons of banks and insurers rely on. If one of them has a major operational failure, bang, the ripple effect could be huge.
Right. A single point of failure, but magnified across the sector.
Exactly. And what's really crucial to get here is that DORA's framework for these CTPPs, it doesn't replace the financial entity's own job of managing its risks.
Okay, that's important.
It layers on top. It provides that EU-level supervision for the really critical tech partners, the ones that individual banks or insurers maybe can't fully oversee on their own.
So it's like building extra scaffolding around the system, not taking down your own internal walls.
Yeah.
Got it. But who exactly does this scaffolding apply to? Is it every single tech vendor you use?
No, definitely not. That would be unmanageable. DORA Oversight applies exclusively to ICT third-party providers that the ESAs have formally designated as critical.
And there are exclusions.
Yes, clear boundaries. It doesn't cover services that aren't defined as ICT services under DORA itself. It also doesn't apply if the CTPP is providing services to, say, retail customers, only to regulated financial entities.
What about players already under some kind of oversight, like the big payment systems?
Good question. Yeah, generally those are carved out. So ICT providers already subject to specific oversight frameworks, like for the European system of central banks, think SWIFT. Euroclear, they aren't typically covered by this DORA CTPP oversight. Their resilience is already intensely watched elsewhere.
Makes sense.
Same for financial entities providing ICT to other financial entities or intergroup providers or even an ICT TPP that only operates and serves entities within a single EU country. It's really targeted at those potentially systemic cross-border players who might otherwise slip through regulatory gaps.
Okay, targeted approach. So once a provider is designated, what are the overseers actually trying to achieve? What are the main goals?
The number one goal is to monitor the risks the CTPPs pose to the financial sector overall. That means really assessing if the CTPPs have, solid rules, procedures, controls, effective ways to manage the operational risks they inherently bring.
And broader goals.
Well, DORA also wants to promote more consistency across Europe in how national supervisors look at ICT third-party risk. Make it more harmonized. And ultimately, the big picture is strengthening the digital operational resilience of the financial entities themselves, preserving stability.
So for our listeners, the risk managers on the ground, what are the tangible outcomes? What should they expect to see coming out of this?
Okay, practically. You'll see the official list of designated critical ICT providers. That brings clarity. You should also expect, over time, a much deeper collective understanding of the services these CTPPs offer and the risks involved.
Which helps everyone.
Exactly. And importantly, it leads to identifying areas where risk mitigation is needed, followed by formal recommendations issued to the CTPPs. And maybe most relevant for your day job, the competent authorities, your national regulators, get fed information from this oversight. That helps them supervise your entity's ICT and third-party risks better.
It's a new intelligence flow.
That sounds like a massive coordination effort across Europe. Who are the actual people, the bodies making this happen? Who are the key actors?
The main power rests collectively with the 3 European supervisory authorities. You know, the EBA for banking, EIOPA for insurance and pensions, and ESMA for securities and markets. They hold the joint authority to oversee CDPPs across the EU.
Right, the ESAs. And I heard there's a lead overseer concept. How does that work?
Yeah, for each designated CPPP, one of those 3 ESAs gets appointed as the lead overseer, the LO. It's based on which sector uses that CTPP the most, measured by total assets of the financial entities using their services.
So the LO is the main point person for that CTPP. Pretty much. They're the primary contact, the decision maker for oversight activities concerning that CTPP. Requesting info, issuing recommendations, even charging the fees DORA allows for covering oversight costs. Direct accountability.
Okay, but they can't do it all alone, surely. I've read about joint examination teams, JTs.
Exactly right. The ALOs get significant help from these joint examination teams. Think of them as, like, DORA's operational arm on the ground for specific examinations.
Who's on these teams?
They're multidisciplinary. Staff from the ESAs themselves, crucially, staff from the relevant national competent authorities, the ones who supervise the banks or insurers using that CTPP. And optionally, they can include national CAs who might already supervise the CTPP under other rules, like NIS2, or the CA from the country where the CTPP is legally based.
So a real mix of perspectives. ICT expertise, operational risk.
Precisely. It ensures they have that holistic view needed for complex tech oversight.
And the national competent authorities, your local regulators, what's their broader role beyond just putting people on GGTs?
Oh, they're vital. It's a two-way street. They cooperate closely with the ESAs. They have seats on the governance bodies, so they steer things. And importantly, they feed information up to the overseers, telling them about any material issues they spot with the CTPP during their supervision of you, the financial entity.
I see.
And in return, the DORA overseers share their findings and insights back down to the CAs. This helps the CAs do their job better in supervising your entity's handling of ICT and third-party risk. It's meant to be a reinforcing loop.
That flow of information sounds critical for us risk managers. Now, structurally, does DORA just bolt onto the existing ESA structures, or are there specific new bodies?
Good point. It's integrated into the ESA's main governance, yes, the Board of Supervisors, the Joint Committee, but DORA also created specific bodies just for this. There's the Oversight Forum, the OAF, that's a standing committee doing preparatory work, ensuring consistency across the ESAs.
Okay.
And then there's the Joint Oversight Network, the JON. That's more about coordinating the day-to-day oversight work and prepping decisions for the OF.
And I think I saw something about a joint venture.
Yes. To really make sure it's cross-sectoral and integrated day-to-day, the ESAs set up the DORA Joint Oversight Venture, the JOV. That became operational back in October 2024. It's the engine room, making sure banking, insurance, and markets oversight is handled jointly, efficiently, no silos.
Okay, quite a structure. So with all these players lined up, the big question, how does a tech provider actually get labeled critical? This must be fascinating for our listeners thinking about their own vendors.
It's a really important process. It happens annually, this assessment and designation, and it's heavily data-driven.
Where does the data come from?
Primarily from those registers of information that you, as financial entities, have to maintain and report to your competent authorities about your ICT third-party arrangements. The CAs consolidate this, send it to the ESAs, and they get this huge EU-wide picture of dependencies.
And what are they looking for in that data? What are the criticality criteria?
DORA Article 31 and a related Commission delegated regulation lay out 4 main domains. First, the potential systemic impact if that CTPP had a major failure impact on stability, continuity, quality financial services.
Right.
Second, the systemic importance of the financial entities relying on the CTPP. Third, how much those entities depend on the CTPP for functions deemed critical or important.
Okay, dependency.
And fourth, and this one's really interesting, the degree of substitutability. How easily could the sector switch to an alternative provider if needed? If it's really hard to switch, even if they aren't the biggest provider, they might be critical.
That's a key point. It's not just size, it's how locked in the sector is. How do they measure this?
They use 11 specific criteria across those 4 domains. 6 are quantitative, 5 are qualitative. It's a 2-step process. First, they crunch the numbers from the registers using the quantitative criteria. Then, they apply the qualitative subcriteria to refine that list and make the final judgment.
And the provider gets told.
Oh, yes. They get formally notified if they're designated. Then they have 6 weeks to respond with a reasoned statement, basically, their chance to provide context or argue against it if they wish.
Interesting. And it can apply to a whole group.
Often it does, yes. Designation frequently happens at the parent company level. And another quirk, a non-designated provider can actually ask to be assessed. They can opt in if they think they should be considered critical.
Wow, okay. Now, what's equally fascinating is how practical DORA gets. Once designated, what are the actual expectations for these CTPPs in terms of interacting with the overseers? They need a specific point person.
They do. Designated CTPPs must set up a legal entity within the EU to act as their single coordination point. This entity is the main channel for communication with the overseers.
And what's expected of this coordination point?
The requirements are quite detailed. They need a proper corporate structure, staff with enough seniority and knowledge, the ability to provide information promptly, the legal authority to act.
Sounds like serious setup.
It is. Plus technical capacity, equipment, physical premises, and this is key, enough financial resources to handle data requests, pay the oversight fees, DORA levies, and cover potential penalties. And crucially, they need adequate business office space for the joint examination teams to conduct on-site inspections.
That's very specific. It basically forces a level of organization and transparency. For risk managers like our listeners, that's a potential benefit when dealing with these CTPPs, knowing they have this structure in place.
Absolutely. It should, in theory, make interaction and information gathering more streamlined and professional. It's due diligence baked into the regulation.
Okay, let's shift gears to DORA's toolkit. How do the overseers actually do the oversight? What tools are in their belt?
It starts with an annual cycle called the Oversight Risk Assessment Process, or OAR. Think of it as the strategic planning phase for each CTPP.
What does ORAP involve?
Each year, the overseers use ORAP to figure out the specific risk profile of each critical provider. Where are the potential weaknesses? What are the biggest threats? This assessment then feeds directly into creating individual annual oversight plans for each CTPP.
And that plan dictates what happens next.
Exactly. It determines the intensity and the scope of the oversight activities, including examinations for the coming year. It also informs a longer-term, multi-annual strategic plan. It's risk-based.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. What kinds of activities are we talking about? Is it always full-blown audits?
No, not at all. It's designed to be gradual and proportional. The baseline is ongoing, regular monitoring. This is the continuous day-to-day interaction, mostly desktop-based.
What does that look like?
Regular meetings with the CTPP, plus systematically collecting periodic information, things like org charts, details on their ICT budget, results from security tests, their risk management plans, even their audited financial statements.
Now, that raises a question for you listening. How often do you get that level of detail, org charts, security test results from your own critical vendors right now? DORA is mandating this transparency from CTPPs.
It's a significant level of insight, providing a continuous picture. Then, stepping up, there are requests for information, RFI.
Different kinds.
Yes. A simple request, they expect a response, accuracy is vital, but there's no immediate financial penalty for missing the deadline. Then there's a decision RFI. This is formal, legally binding. Miss the deadline or provide incomplete info here, and the CTPP can face financial penalties. These RFIs are key for digging into specific issues that pop up.
Okay, so formal ways to get data. What if they need to dig deeper than just requesting documents?
That's where general investigations come in. These are more formal reviews focusing on specific risk areas. They're kicked off by a formal decision that spells out the subject, the purpose, and importantly, the potential penalties if the CTPT doesn't cooperate.
Are there different flavors of investigation?
Yeah, several types. Regular ones for just getting a better high-level understanding. Thematic ones looking at a common risk across multiple CTPPs, maybe a vulnerability in a certain software type. Targeted investigations doing a deep dive into a specific risk at just one CTPP. And follow-up investigations to check if they've actually fixed things from previous recommendations.
And the investigators have powers.
Oh, yes. During investigations, the authorized people can examine records, take copies, summon CTPP representatives for questioning, conduct interviews, pretty broad powers.
And then the top tier, inspections. These sound like the most intrusive.
They definitely are. Inspections involve the highest level of scrutiny. They can happen at any of the CTPP's business premises, head office, data centers, operational hubs, or they can be done off-site remotely.
What's the goal of an inspection?
To get a much deeper understanding of how things actually work on the ground, their operations, their risk management and practice, their internal controls, stuff you often can't see just from documents. They're meant to be risk-based, forward-looking, and focused on driving action.
Okay, here's where I read something really striking. During these inspections, the teams can actually enter premises, access records, and even seal locations or records.
That's correct. It's a significant power underlining the seriousness. They can enter premises, examine books and records, take copies, ask for explanations on the spot, and yes, if necessary to prevent tampering or ensure the integrity of the inspection, they can seal business premises, books, or records for a period.
Wow. And what if a CTPP just says, no, you can't come in?
That's a major escalation. If a CTPP opposes an inspection, the lead overseer informs the relevant national competent authorities. This could ultimately lead to the CAs requiring the financial entities they supervise, so potentially your institution to suspend or even terminate their contracts with that non-cooperative CTPP.
That is a huge stick for the authorities. It basically forces CTPPs to cooperate, and it puts the onus on financial entities to have exit plans if their critical vendor refuses oversight. That's a massive risk connection.
It absolutely highlights the importance DORA places on this oversight function. The inspection process itself is thorough. Planning, gathering info beforehand, scoping it out, pre-inspection checks, the inspection visit itself, on-site, off-site, writing the report, a closing meeting with the CTPP, and then drafting preliminary recommendations.
Okay, so after all these examinations, monitoring, investigations, inspections, findings emerge, what happens next? How are consequences delivered, and how is follow-up handled, especially if the CTPP operates globally?
Right. So based on all those findings, the lead overseer issues recommendations to the CTPP. These are technically non-binding, but they target specific problems found.
Like what kind of problems?
Could be anything related to the DORA requirements, weaknesses in ICT security, issues with their service terms and conditions, problems with how they manage their own subcontractors, you name it.
And how does the CTPP respond?
They get the recommendations, then they have 30 days to give input, particularly on how it might affect their non-financial customers. After that, they have 60 days to formally tell the overseer whether they intend to follow the recommendation, or if not, provide a really solid, reasoned explanation why not.
And if they say, yes, we'll fix it, is that it?
Not quite. If they agree to follow the recommendation, they have to submit a detailed remediation plan, how they'll fix it, by when, and they have to provide regular progress reports. The overseers monitored this closely as part of that ongoing oversight loop.
And the national regulators, the CAs.
They play a role too. They look at the CTPP's remediation actions and assess the impact on the financial entities they supervise. They can take their own follow-up actions if needed. It connects back to the institution level.
Okay, but what if the CTPPP digs its heels in, says no, or he gives a flimsy excuse? Are there real teeth then?
Yes, absolutely. This is a critical enforcement piece. If a CTPP refuses to endorse a recommendation or their explanation just isn't good enough in the overseer's view, DORA mandates public disclosure.
They name and shame.
Essentially, yes. The identity of the CTPP and the specific nature of their non-compliance are made public. That's a powerful reputational hit.
And then?
Following that public notice, the competent authorities can issue direct warnings to the financial entities using that CTPP. And the ultimate step, the measure of last resort.
Let me guess. Termination.
The CAs can require a financial entity to suspend using the service, or yes, even terminate their contractual relationship with that non-compliant CTPP entirely. That forces a hard exit.
That is a massive potential impact on a financial institution's operations. It really drives home the need to understand your CTPP's DORA status. Now, what about providers outside the EU? Can DORA reach them? What does this mean for your global third-party risk strategy?
It's a really relevant question. Yes, DORA does allow for oversight activities outside the Union. Overseers can conduct investigations and inspections at CTPP premises in third countries.
Under what conditions?
There are strict conditions. It has to be necessary, meaning the objectives can't be met just by looking at EU operations. It must relate directly to services provided to EU financial entities. The CTPP has to consent explicitly, and the authority in that third country has to be notified and not object.
Sounds like diplomatic hurdles.
It requires formal cooperation. The ESAs need to set up administrative cooperation arrangements with those third country authorities. If oversight outside the EU just isn't possible for whatever reason, that fact and its potential consequences have to be documented and considered in the recommendations and the overall risk assessment of that CTPP.
So basically, there's now a regulatory expectation that your critical non-EU providers should be prepared for this level of scrutiny too.
That's a fair takeaway. It pushes for global consistency and transparency and cooperation from critical players serving the EU market.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. DORA clearly creates this really robust, multi-layered oversight system for those critical ICT third parties. It's designed fundamentally to boost digital resilience across the whole EU financial sector, and it sounds like it's built to adapt, not static.
Definitely. And for you listening as a risk manager, the big takeaway is that DORA forces a much deeper, more structured engagement with your third-party risks. It changes the game for due diligence. You need to ask harder questions.
Right.
It reshapes vendor management because you'll get more data, potentially. And it definitely impacts your compliance strategy. But maybe think of it positively. This framework gives you more transparency and, frankly, more leverage over your critical tech providers than you likely had before. It should help strengthen your own cyber resilience and operational risk management.
So moving beyond just compliance, and maybe that leads to our final thought for you to chew on. Given this big DORA push for transparency and accountability from your critical tech providers, how can you proactively use this increased oversight? How can you leverage it to really strengthen your own financial entity's resilience, manage those third-party risks better, and maybe even find a strategic advantage in this very interconnected digital world?